All right, welcome to the Marketing Trench. So normally I like to set up these conversations every week by kind of giving you a background of what we've been talking about and why we think this conversation is valuable. But this week, I think you're going to immediately understand why we think this is a conversation worth having. We have with us today Dan Stewart of Happy Grasshopper, and he's going to tell us how to fast track to 12 transactions. Piece of cake. Let's go. Dan, welcome. Glad to have you here. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself? You don't have to tell us how you met Ricardo drunk under a table. We know that story.
It goes without saying. Everyone meets Ricardo eventually.
But if you could tell us, how did you meet these guys, and how did we get to Happy Grasshopper? Give us the kind of 2-minute synopsis here.
Oh gosh, Ricardo is one of the first people I met in the real estate industry.
And you're still in it. That's stunning.
Yeah, I mean it's actually really cool because I was drunk under a table and there he was, right where I needed him. It was perfect. It was great. So a little quick background. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and 10 years ago I had the great fortune of exiting my previous company. And I thought that was great. I thought, yay, I achieved this lifetime goal dream, and it really wasn't as great as I thought it would be. I mean, it sounds like really privileged and douchey to say such a thing, right? But what's next after you worked hard to achieve something you really wanted? I wasn't prepared for that void. And thankfully I had this little idea for Happy Grasshopper. Just barely got started with it. I met Ricardo through Active Rain, and we went out to a rain camp event.
Oh my God!
We met face to face for the first time. Do you remember? I remember you're sitting at the table, and Celeste and I walked right up. We had this great conversation. Next thing I know, it's wild. Years later. There was a table at least. I don't remember any alcohol under the table. There was definitely a table involved. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, this has been my labor of love for 10 years now. I've been, again, just feeling like super lucky to get to do what I want every day. And, initially that meant figuring out how to help people get results with people they already know. So anybody who works in real estate, mortgage, title, insurance, whatever that industry is, our past clients in Sphere are always the most valuable people to us. And sadly, they tend to be those that get ignored the most because, there's all the pressure about speed to lead. You got a new lead, you got to serve them right away. It's that contrast between the important and the urgent that's so interesting. I mean, what's more important than our past clients in Sphere? Nothing really, except the urgency of that brand new lead that just popped up and wants our help right away. So,
and a successful conversion from that new lead is just bringing them into your sphere.
There you go.
If you're successful at following up with prospects, now they become clients and now they're part of your sphere. And I think that's a challenge that a lot of salespeople have, is that in their minds, the sale is over once they get to trust you.
Yeah.
And they do business with you, or they say they want to do business with you. And then we kind of just slack off and just figure out, well, I helped them. They're always going to remember me, even though they never hear from me ever again. But that's not exactly true, is it?
What there's something you just said that's so incredibly brilliant. People need to stop and go back and listen to this part over and over again, because if you change the goal from convert the lead to build a relationship with the lead, you can get right to that end game, where the goal is to have that person eventually become a member of your sphere. Yep. Well, if you start with that as your goal with every new lead, you can build these great relationships. Real estate is one of those things that people think about as being such a part of their future. They'll often show up as a lead a year, 18 months, 2 years before they're ready to even consider having a transaction. That's a lot of time to build a relationship with someone. So, take advantage of that
3 to 18 months.
Yeah, it takes time. It definitely takes time. And then since we're talking about leads a little bit, right? I'm a Sphere past client guy. If you want to convert more leads, teach them what your Sphere and past clients love about you. Help them understand that. And it's a lot easier for them to go, oh, yeah, you're my guy. I want to work with you. So
So you founded Happy Grasshopper, and you're doing what you love to do every day. What does that look like? What does a day at Happy Grasshopper look like for you?
Well, thanks to COVID, I have a grueling 150-foot walk from the back door of my house to my detached garage where we are right now. Thank you, COVID. Right, thank you. So I spend a portion of my day being a tech geek. I spend a portion of my day managing my team. I have a really great, talented team of people that I think there needs to be a better word than manage, because they don't need me to like make sure they're doing stuff. They need me to really create the environment that lets them achieve the big, great things that they want to. So that's what I try to focus on there. About 30 feet that way is my only son, Ben, who's been a member of the company now for 4 years. He's our lead sales development rep, and like I can't tell you how cool that feels to get to work with my son and actually have it work. Like, come on, what's better than that? That's a really good thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I get to annoy people on podcasts. That's my part-time job.
You're doing a great job so far.
Thank you.
So, let's start back. Why did you start Happy Grasshopper, and what was the problem that you recognized that you were trying to solve?
This goes back to the pain I had at my previous company. So we were a CRM platform. We built white labeled software for franchise organizations. So the franchise company would buy our stuff and then require all their franchisees to use it, or excuse me, buy it. The usage part was the thing that drove me nuts. I remember looking at the stats, and we would see only 18% of our members had ever sent a single message from the platform.
Oh my gosh.
That gave me ulcers, literally. That was the thing that kept me up at night. Because how do you build a sustainable business when people don't even use the product? Like, why would they ever continue if they're not using it? That drove me nuts. So when I started Happy Grasshopper, it was not intended to be a company. It was intended to be an experiment to solve the usage problem. So our CRM platform sent messaging, and it sent it intelligently according to lead capture and pipeline stage changes. Everybody wanted it for that, but they didn't use it because they didn't know what to say. The content void, like, what do I say? Okay, I should send a message, but what do I say? And then how frequently do I say it? How long do I keep saying it for? Those are all pain points that stop people from reaching out to their database. And I know you, if you're in the audience right now, you are carrying some guilt because I guarantee there's someone you've served in the past that you've lost touch with. And now you feel like, well, if I reach out now, it gets awkward, the silence gap gets long enough to where who's going to blink first, right? And I sympathize with people who feel that way because, if you're a real estate agent and you serve that client and then you lost touch with them, well, have they been served by someone else? Are they still happy in the home they purchased from you? Like, those are some pretty significant psychological barriers you got to jump over to decide to send that message. So, we essentially say, here's the data. It almost always is the right thing to do. Like, press your trust button and go ahead and send a message to those folks.
And so you built Happy Grasshopper to do what specifically then?
Well, initially we built it to see if people would send messaging if we created the messaging for them. That was a yes, right? So we focused first on past clients and Sphere. Then we focused on lead conversion. And finally, we focused on recruitment. So, today, 10 years later, those are the only 3 reasons we get hired. Brokerages, franchises, national brands, they hire us to create a white label version of our service that their agents can use and that we help them recruit more agents with. Individual agents, they either hire us for help with lead conversion or for help with their past clients in Sphere. And then we have, the very core of our service is called Chirp. And that's a plan for absolutely everybody that has past clients in Sphere. And it's designed to help them do what Dustin said right at the top, find those 12 transactions per year just from your past clients in Sphere.
So explain that. We've had this conversation a lot of times, and it sounds like a little bit of an audacious claim, but it realistically is not, especially if you're not touching your past clients right now. I think people underestimate the amount of business that you can get from repeat and referral business when you take excellent care of your past client database. So what did you do with Chirp specifically? Because one of the things that I always loved about you, Dan, is you don't do anything without you are such a data geek. Like everything is backed up. You have the data for everything, and you don't just have whims. You analyze the data and you're like, here's a trend where somebody's not taking advantage of something, or here's a gap, or here is clearly the gap in the communication. Here's how we fix it. So why Chirp, and what specifically was it about Chirp that you think is going to deliver an extra 12 deals a year?
Yeah, well, first, we know it's going to deliver that. That is a reasonable expectation for anyone to have if they load the right contacts into the system.
You mean you can't just upload title data?
Imagine that.
How many? How many? So you got the right contacts, but I'm a new agent, say, and I haven't sold more than 3 homes in the last 2 years. Do I have enough contacts?
Here's the simple way to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
Because we accept contacts from agents all across the U.S. and Canada. We see the data where we go, oh, come on, like these people registered at your open house 5 years ago, and you're saying they're Sphere. You believe these people know who you are? They do not. They have no clue who you are. So here's the test. Take all the people in your database and imagine that they're walking around your favorite grocery store with you. Okay. Yeah. So think about that. You're pushing your cart up and down the aisle. If they're not like, oh my God, Dustin, how have you been, man? They should not go and Chirp. Like, we need people who actually know who you are. And maybe that's a little ambitious, right? If they give you a head nod, if they're like, yeah, I know who you
recognize you.
Yeah, we have to have that, because the data shows it doesn't really matter how many contacts you have. What matters is how many relationships you have. So that's where we start, right? And we have members who've loaded as few as 3 contacts and get replies from our messaging. Think about that. Like, agents will bust their butt to create a HTML newsletter. They'll spend hours on it. That's their pride and joy. They send it out and nobody notices. It does not make a difference.
Right? It was nice, but it looks nice.
And there's, I don't want to throw rocks, right? Because there is a reason to do that sort of thing.
Right.
It's yet, we live in a world where our attention's always in demand. There's always something else we could be working on. I want to do what works. I don't want to do what just takes time and produces few results. So
let's unpack kind of the nitty gritty of some of this stuff, because you have a specific type of content and kind of a specific cadence that you have developed or that you've recognized over the last decade. So so you have to have the right clients, but it's also important to have the right message, right? Because if Dustin's pushing his cart and sees somebody that he hasn't seen for 5 years and he says, hey, what's your interest rate? Or, hey, were you thinking about moving? Like, they're going to be like, I think I recognize you, but you're kind of a little bit of a D-bag, so I'm not sure if I want to talk to you. I'm going to pretend like I don't know who this guy is.
We have a refi on aisle 6, a refi on aisle 6. I mean, come on, guys.
That's right.
Come on, right? And so there's so much here, right? There's so much here. And I love to share some things that I've learned, because we got to change the way people think about some of these things before they're going to get the results that are available for them.
That's right.
So, whether it's my system or any system, let's recognize there are two levers that an agent can control. One is the message, the other is the mechanics, right? So let's talk about the mechanics side. Can you guys think of a system other than Happy Grasshopper that sends email messaging? Oh my God, only about 1 million of them. Samsung makes a refrigerator that can send you a text, for God's sakes. Okay.
What?
Sending a message is not a challenge in 2021. Everything sends messaging, right? So the challenge is on the message side, right? It's easy to send a message. It's a challenge to send a message that people want and that they'll respond to. That's what we're measuring for. Open rates are great in email, but it's far less important than how many people reply. That's what matters. So if you've got great mechanics and you have great messaging, you can bring those two things together in a way that overlaps and creates emotion. Okay? Emotion creates behavior. So, if we're going to create this mechanism that delivers messaging that starts conversations, we have to get really good at measuring what are the sorts of things that people will reply to. And, here are a few rule of thumbs. If you want to increase the amount of engagement you have, no matter what you're sending, raise the curiosity of the reader and leave it unresolved. The only way they can talk to you, or the only way they can resolve their curiosity is to talk to you. They will talk to you. So, let's talk about mortgages. A lot of my friends in the mortgage space share data. Here's what's happening in the market. This is what interest rates are doing. The way to take that same strategy and make it more effective is to share one piece of the data from the perspective of how it's going to impact that person. Hey, Ricardo, wanted to reach out because we just looked at some data that's going to make a difference for you and your family. Love to talk to you about it. It's down 2.whatever%. Well, what's down? I don't know. What does this even mean? I'm curious. How's it going to affect my family? I want to understand. So, that's an example of a way to create a conversation with someone who knows who you are. Just one of many. So I'll go down tangent, Scott. You're going to have to keep pulling me back.
No. This is important. This is really good. This is really good because this also goes to the question of what kind of content are people putting out there? So what we're constantly harping on people, our broken record is you need to be a content creator. You need to have content, or if you're not a content creator, you can be a content curator at the very least. Have interesting things and put them out there. And I think a lot of times, in our coaching programs and things like that, they're always pushing for the sale. But I think what you're dialing in on is it's quality, not quantity. And it's also a conversation. It's not necessarily a conversion. The conversion happens when you build trust, you deepen a relationship, and then you have an opportunity to have a conversation that turns into conversion. And those are important ways to think about this. We're not putting nickels in the gumball machine and pulling out a gumball. We're making these investments in these relationships so that we're amplifying our impact on this person's life. And quite frankly, we're turning these past clients into advocates and evangelists, if we can, for who we are and the way that we run our business. And that helps the word spread even more. And you can do that by having high trust, interesting quality content that you're sending to them that causes them to engage with you. So I know if you go to the Chirp page on Happy Grasshopper, you kind of talk a little bit about, I forgot what you call it. You have a name for it. It's the non-sales message or something like that. Unpack the logic behind that messaging and that cadence a little bit. Sure.
So this is a very data-driven thing, by the way. You mentioned data before. This is where this comes from, right? We measured what people do with content that we send to them, and it turns out that between transactions, if all we're talking about is real estate, people go numb Like they stop engaging, right? It's natural for us to care about what's happening in real estate all the time. Of course, it's our livelihood. Of course we do.
Yeah.
It's not natural for the general population to care about what's happening in real estate all the time. So, think of it like the perfect golf swing. You're not trying to like chop a tree down with that swing. It's a nice, easy flowing thing. So, nice, easy flowing communication is relevant to the moment in time that we're sharing. Okay. So, I stand against systems that have one size fits all content where it's the same for everyone. And like there's 3 years worth of content built into the system.
Yeah.
What's going to happen between when you start and the next 3 years?
Nothing will change between now and 3 years from now. It never does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we're all excited for Ricardo because he has been formally adopted to the space program. We know for sure that he's going to be one of the first people to visit the moon again, and that's wonderful. Let's not pretend that he's still going to be hanging around to do podcasts, right? Stuff changes. Stuff will always change. So our writers create content, and it expires once every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, we push all new content into the system, and then our members choose the messaging that's most satisfying to them. And the types of messages that we send make a difference here. So mechanics, right? We'll talk about that side for a moment. It's email, and the right frequency there is 17 sends per year. That's once every 3 weeks. We send more frequently, we get a higher ignore rate. We send less frequently, we get a higher ignore and spam complaint rate, right?
Really? You send more frequently, you get a higher spam complaint rate.
Yeah, they go, oh, I haven't heard from you in a while, and I didn't miss you. Unsubscribe. Like they don't want it. Now, this is specifically for that group of people who knows who you are. Wow. If we're looking at leads, if you've got like this big database of leads, you want to message more frequently at the beginning and then less frequently over time, because those people are annoyed if you continually reach out. But if we went through the hell of a real estate transaction together, and the only time I ever hear from you is every now and then when you're clearly looking for more commission. Well, screw you. I thought we were family. Like, we have a relationship and you're making it all about business. So back to the frequency. 17 emails per year, and then 12 texts and 12 ringless voicemail drops. And these work like a 1-2 punch. So their birthday, their transaction anniversary, once a quarter, we send a lead harvesting message. So, that's a key thing, because your sphere and past clients are great sources of leads. So once a quarter, it's fine to say, hey, all those messages I sent that show you I love you, I also need to eat. So who do you know that's thinking of moving, right? That it reminds them that, there is a person who needs to earn a living over here. And those messages are highly effective. We have people like, do you guys know Barry Jenkins? Barry's amazing. He's like 850 transactions a year with his team out of Virginia Beach. He sent a quarterly lead harvesting voicemail to his past clients in Sphere. He pulled 2 listings in 24 hours, and then he got a third listing 11 days later from just one ringless voicemail drop. Right? That's 3 transactions from just one of the 41 touches per year that go in Chirp. So 12 is not unrealistic by any stretch.
That probably paid for his Happy Grasshopper account for the next decade. That one drop.
Yeah, I mean, come on. We don't charge nearly enough for Chirp, but that's okay. That's okay. So it's $47 a month, right? Or $470 for the year. Average GCI per side of about $6,000. Come on, do the math. It's stupid not to use our service.
So here's something when we talk about mechanics. So what you said is you kind of load up this content library. Do you have the delivery systems that? So say somebody wants to sign up and they're on your platform. Your platform is sending out the communications and it's routing the engagement back to you. So is there just, like, if I were a customer, is there a package that I can just say, Dan, I don't know which is the right one. Can you guys just pick something from your random thing? Is there like a truly done for you? But you encourage people to go and kind of pick stories that they're interested in? How do you address that?
Yeah, great question. So first, I'll state that everything can be fully automated. So we have members who just are 100% set and forget mode. They do their initial setup, they load their contacts. We notify them, hey, Ricardo, we're sending a message for you. It's going to go out in 48 hours. If you'd like to choose a different one, click here. You can go in and do that, right? We give you that heads up.
And what percentage of people do that? 18%? What was the number you said before?
You know, I love that you brought that up, because we have a usage rate I'm really proud of. It's 82%.
Wow.
So we went from 18 to 82% by providing content. And average member sticks with us for more than 5 years, right? So that's great.
No way.
That's great. And this is like, this is the one that really makes me shiver here, is that wherever they start with us on their journey, like, we can grow with them. So like, one of my favorite stories is Eric Pearson. He's the managing broker at Pearson Smith in Northern Virginia, DC, and Maryland. And when he started with us, he was a single agent at Keller Williams. That's it. Today, he has over 1,000 agents in his brokerage.
Jeez.
And every single one of those agents uses our service. Like,
oh, wow.
That's awesome. So I'm a relationship guy. And for him to have trusted us when he was a single agent, and for me to have talked to him while he was working out at the gym last week, come on, that's what it's all about. Like, you know, it's one thing to be successful. It's a lot more to like take a tribe of people with you.
Did you just tell us that story so you could tell us that you work out at a gym?
I don't work out. Look at me.
Are you a CrossFitter, Dan? Are you a CrossFitter? Is that what this is all about the whole time?
So I'm in Florida, and he is not. It was just a call. Yeah, please.
But so
awesome.
So something that I want people to really understand that they watch this, because we've got mortgage and real estate professionals on here, and we try to bring people on. Obviously, nobody else is Dan Stewart, but we're trying to bring people like you on because we want to have conversations, because there are so many shiny objects and shiny object salespeople out there that are making these crazy promises and claiming something is set it and forget it. and this is a refreshing conversation. I mean, you started this business to solve a specific problem, and it's always been about the consumer experience. And the consumer experience for you represents us as professionals, but more importantly, the relationship that we have with our clientele. And coming from that place is such an important thing, because you built products that change people's lives, that help grow their business and help them communicate better and deepen relationships. And when you're choosing a vendor, I think these stories are really, really important. Why did you create this? What problem were you trying to solve? Oh, now we got an echo from somebody there. And so I just think, so I guess I just really appreciate you being on here and sticking with this for so long and being so transparent and talking about what you're doing and why you're doing it. This is just a really, really valuable, I think this is a valuable experience for people to hear this.
Well, thank you. Can I share something personal? Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's why your audience is here or not, but you know, like, I don't think my experience as a human being is as rare as it should be. Like a lot of kids, I grew up in an environment I did not like. You know, my parents loved us, but they weren't well equipped to care for us. They were alcoholics and abusers. And I moved 14 times before I graduated high school. I could just as easily be in jail as be here with you guys, except for all the mothers who weren't my mom, but they cared enough to like make room for me in their life. They cared enough to love me like I was their son. They gave me a place to stay and food to eat. And like my core values and belief are all centered around paying forward all the love I've been so ridiculously blessed with. So, you know, when I say I'm a relationship guy, I completely mean it, because without those relationships early in my life, there's no way I'd be here with you guys today. It just wouldn't happen. Wow. And, you know, you see all these people in business who are out there like, you know, you need this widget and that shiny object and all these other, and I say, you know what? Okay, but like if you've got a great relationship with somebody, you already have everything you need. I mean, just with us four here, who is it somebody would need an introduction to that we couldn't possibly know for anything? Like personally, professionally, if you had a problem, you know, and reached out and asked people for help with that problem, they will help you with that problem. Yeah. Like you guys dedicating your time to put this show together, you're paying forward some measure of kindness that was paid to you. This isn't purely a commercial endeavor, right? It's not. It can't be.
It is far less than a commercial endeavor.
This is a nonprofit in every sense of that word.
Well, I just feel like for you guys to take your time, I mean, for you to take your time and do something like this, that's meaningful. That's incredibly meaningful.
And it was specifically for that. It was literally the three of us would sit around and we would talk about all of this stuff. There's nobody selling anything. There's no we try to be technology and product agnostic on our show. We're just really talking about things that work, and the tech is a piece of it, but it's also why the product exists and what problem it's trying to solve. And really we
were mentoring each other and holding each other accountable.
Right. That's what we were doing. And then one day we just said, I wonder if anybody else would care about these conversations. These are good conversations. And it's like every time we sat down and talked to each other, one of us would learn, we'd have this aha moment and we'd say, man, wow, that's really good. And then we thought, well, what if we just start having these conversations? And then it gave us the opportunity to, I mean, I haven't talked to you in forever, so much for that deep relationship, right? It feels like it feels like it was not that long ago that I saw you last time. But no, this is, we're just trying to strip all the sales and all of the shenanigans out of these conversations and just having these conversations like, you know, as people can be a fly on the wall when we're talking about stuff and somebody's not trying to sell stuff to you.
Okay, so I want to peck away at some things here. This is my role. Start pecking away at it. Okay, so
well, you are considered the pecker of the group, so go ahead.
Ooh, burn.
It's
I've only at this moment like 5 things hit my filter and it short circuited me. It was like, oh, I can't play that. We're trying to clean up the show, Dan, for public TV, but that's neither here nor there. So, Dan, oops, it's okay. Woodpecker kids, woodpecker. Stupid. Dan, I really like your ideas about building relationships. I think it's great. I also think it's something that people talk about a lot. And I know that when I sit down to write the emails, right, to our clients, to sphere of influence people, I have a relationship with, I would say maybe a dozen of our top clients. I have a pretty strong relationship with them where when we get together, we don't talk about business, like, hey, how are the kids doing? How's life? What are you up to? You know, that sort of thing, right? But for whatever reason, when I sit down and start writing an email to these people, like my brain, like there's this part of my brain that starts annoying me and is like, oh, you're not going to close a deal if you, or maybe even makes me feel guilty for even bringing business into the conversation. Does that make sense? Like but I need to talk to them about business because I do want them to think about me for escrow. Maybe I'm trying to get a referral, to another agent in their office or something like that. And I feel dirty. So how do you, with a Happy Grasshopper and Chirp, how do you craft these emails that bring in the personal relationship aspect, but also blend the business. Like what are you guys thinking about in terms of that balance and in terms of what qualifies, what doesn't qualify for things you should say? Can you pull back the curtain there and help me to understand that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So we try to strike a balance between things that are present to the moment in time and things that are timeless, right? Because this goes down to human needs psychology. I'm going to totally geek out on more data, Scott. Sorry, but we're all driven by the same 6 fundamental human needs, and one of them is for love and connection, right? So those are the values that tend to transcend time. I told a story about the way I was raised. Everybody has stories about the way they were raised, whether they had the best parents in the world or they had a more challenging situation. It's something we can all relate to. So, when we're thinking about how to bring emotion into a message, the subject of the message, the story that we're choosing to relate can make a big difference. So I'm going to share a recent message here with you. And I'll describe this for you guys. So we're looking for something current that's happening, and we're looking to make people feel good. And then we're looking to pull the conversation back to a real estate topic. So those are the beats of the message. Those are the chunks. Right? So if you were our member, we would serve up 5 or 6 different options of these and ask you to choose one. You'd get to rate each of the messages, so we get to learn your preferences over time. Here, you guys aren't choosing these. I'm choosing one. I'll just read it. So whether you love it or you hate it, guess what? You're right. You should not send a message you don't like. That should be obvious, but I'll just explain. So the subject line here is Blockbuster finally pivots, right? You guys have heard of Blockbuster because you're alive, right? Yes. And then it says, hi, Ricardo, did you see this? Blockbuster's last store is now an Airbnb rental. And there's a link to the story that he could go look at if he wanted to. It says they've set it up with 90s furniture, TV, VCR, and all the movies you can watch for $4 per night. And then there's a picture of the inside of the Blockbuster store where they have a couch with the fold-out bed.
What state is that in? I would totally do that.
Yeah. So then beneath the picture, it says, and call me crazy, I actually love this. It kind of makes me wish they'd paid more attention to Netflix and pivoted sooner. Speaking of real estate changes, do you know anyone who's thinking of moving, or even someone we could convince to move if they got enough money for their home? Thanks. And then, whoever signed it, right? So we'll break that down. Subject everybody is familiar with, but they don't know this about it, so it feels special. Had you heard this story about Blockbuster?
Nope.
Okay. But you know what Blockbuster is. So now you feel like you've received a gift from me, because if you really like this story, you're almost certainly going to tell it to somebody, right? You're in the know, courtesy of this message. I reminded you of how much fun it used to be to go to Blockbuster and pick out a movie. And maybe for some of you, you're reminded that you hated those late fees because we all had to pay them at some point, right?
Rewinding the tapes.
Rewind? What? That's crazy.
All the millennials are like, what the hell are these guys talking about?
The mercenary let's create commission part is what we call the call to conversation. So speaking of real estate changes, do you know anyone who's thinking of moving, or even anyone we could convince to move if they got enough money for their home, right? So we sent that for a lot of members who selected the message. The average open rate for that message was 53%. Average open rate in real estate is 14%. We're at 53% on that message. And the replies, like there's a guy, Randall Martin, he's with CBNA in Houston, Texas, and he got 4 transaction opportunities from that message worth between $1.5 and $2 million. Yeah, and I'm looking at this on my screen here. He received an email from a client that's worth reading, if you don't mind. This is a reply to that message about Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Hi, Randall. Hope that you, Vanessa, and your family are doing well. Your last sentence got me. I've seen some wildly different valuations for our home lately, from Chase for refinancing and from Zillow. We've been talking about possibly moving outside the inner loop. Are you able to give me an idea what we could list for? The address is... So this is that easy golf swing, right? I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just care about you enough to stay in touch with you. And oh, by the way, hey, maybe if you know anybody, you could send them my way. That's how it works.
Well, and what was really valuable there is that's obviously part of his business model, because his client knew the members of his family, right? Didn't the client say, "Hey, is your wife and hope your wife and kids are doing fine"? How many of us have had our clients ask us about our family? Right. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. And how long has he been using your service to engage with his past clients?
I can look that up in the system and know accurately.
It's been a while.
Oh, at least 5 years. Yeah, at least 5.
So how many emails that the open rate you gave us, which is outstanding. Those are HomeBot open rates, pretty much, right? Ricardo, high 50%.
Yeah.
But that's something very unique and specific to the consumer. How much data is that across? How many users is that open rate across?
Well, we're currently nurturing about 16 million contacts for our members. So, God, I'm going to do it again, Scott. I'm geeking out. I'm going to tell you some more data.
Dude, that's what we do here. We do.
So I really wanted to know what's effective and what's not effective, right? So we built something we call Queen Bee reporting into our system. So there's this great book by Mike Michalowicz called Clockwork. Have you guys read Clockwork? It's about bringing process and systems into your
Mike
business.
Is awesome.
Yeah, Motorbike Mike. I love that dude. So I went to his Clockwork conference. They had it in Tampa.
Oh, wow.
And, they challenge you to think of what the queen bee role is in your company. And, the idea is, if you think of a beehive, the queen is the most important bee. The whole reason the hive exists is to make sure she's healthy and making more bees. That's the one thing that can't be screwed up in a beehive is the queen. Everything else is expendable. Yeah. And so I thought, well, our ability to produce content that works is the most important thing. Everything else can go by the wayside. If we don't do that one thing, nothing else really matters. So every message we've ever written, we've fed into this engine, and we broke it down into different classifications. So we know, for example, like subject lines, what's effective, what's not effective. We're able to see variances between like what was most popular, which of our messages did members select the most, versus which messages actually perform the best. They're not always the same. That's interesting. We've seen some assumptions fall by the wayside as part of this. Like, what you see an emoji in a subject line of an email. Would you assume that would be opened more than an email without an emoji in the subject line? My assumption was yes. I assumed it would be. And it turns out that it's neutral. It's neutral. It really does not make a difference to the overall open rate. And yet it does communicate some things. So I think it's valuable. And a lot of the messages we send, we use emojis then. So there's two components to Queen Bee reporting. One is for the community content we send. Like in Chirp, for example, we're not interviewing the member. We've got community content that they choose from, and that content's all fresh once every 2 weeks. For our custom clients, we assign a copywriter to them. We interview them. We create messages that are specific for them. And then we measure that custom campaign against all the other custom campaigns that we've ever written. So we end up with guardrails. Like there's an upper boundary of performance and a lower boundary of performance. So Scott hires us. We write this great custom campaign for him. He loves the content. He thinks it's great. We push it out into the world. And if it performs outside of those guide rails, we're alerted. So if it's above expectations, we want to go in there and figure out why. And if it's below expectations, we want to go in there and fix whatever's wrong, whatever's broken.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I love this stuff. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so enthusiastic about the most boring thing we've talked about all day. So,
well, I'm interested. How did you get that email response? Did your client forward that to you and say, Dan, check this thing out? Or are you guys actually watching the responses in your system somehow?
Yeah, that's great. So the messages are sent from our system. We're a tier 1 email service provider. So we have a great, like you guys are familiar with credit scores, email service providers get a send score, which kind of is a way to measure how well the internet service providers regard the traffic that we're sending. So, nearly all of those 16 million contacts that we're nurturing are known to the person sending the message. They know each other. So we have very low unsubscribe rates. We have very low spam complaint rates. Everything, seems to get sent through the system easily. And Dustin, forgive me, I'm way down the bunny trail. Can you please help me get back on track?
Yeah. So I was wondering, how are you seeing these responses?
Yes. Okay. So when we send the message, it comes from our servers. It's not sent by the member. So the replies come back through our servers. We're able to count those replies, and then the message is forwarded on to the regular inboxes of our members.
And then is that also how you're tracking what the value of the listings are? Because you see people coming back with like, hey, my property is worth X, or like, how are you figuring out that information?
That's anecdotal. That's our members coming to us and saying, oh my God, I sent that crazy blockbuster email and I ended up with $1.5 to $2 million of transactions.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
well, that says something to me too. That's part of why I was curious, because, if your members are, it's one thing to have low churn, right? And a high retention rate. Like that already says a lot to me, because people come and go, and, churn is a big problem in our industry, at least on the I have an escrow company, and on the escrow side, we pour a lot of, marketing dollars and energy into bringing people in. They use us a couple times and then they kind of float away. And my sales team, may or may not identify that happening. But, I don't know why my camera just decided to go away. Okay. Anyway, but when people actually actively come back to you and they're like, Dan, wow, I got these listings. You're sparking something in them. You're sparking excitement. You're sparking, joy. I don't know what you would call it, but like, that's really powerful stuff. Those kinds of responses, that's gold.
I think new members are shocked. They're not used to getting replies to what they're sending. So when they get the replies, that feels like the win.
Yeah.
And, we've had some crazy experiences over the years. We had a member back from the active rain days, Ricardo. Todd Clark. Hi, Todd. Home Run Realty. I can't believe I remember this stuff. But he loaded like 16 contacts into our system, and he found 2 transactions among 16 people, like from his first. That's ridiculous. So I would say if you're listening to this and you feel like you don't have enough contacts, you're almost certainly not correct about that. It's the number of relationships you have that far outweighs the number of contacts that you have. Yeah, that's what matters.
So as we're rounding the 50-minute mark here, I want to give you a chance to, you got a lot of people who are interested in what you're saying. They think, okay, this SOI stuff is making more sense, the way that Dan talks about it, but I still have some questions. As you mentioned at the start of this program, there are about a bajillion people, services that claim to do some variation of this. So sure. If you had to, if you were sitting in a room, people listening, and they're thinking this might make sense, what is something that you think people should absolutely know about you guys that really, is a differentiator? Or maybe, I guess, more to the point, it's like, hey, if you're in this situation right here, you're really a good fit for us. You're our people, and you should really try us out.
Yeah, so that's interesting. There's more than one idea of how to answer that occurs to me.
Sure.
But let's start talking about the audience. Like anyone who works in real estate knows that they're in a high churn industry. I don't have the NAR stat in front of me, but isn't it something like 82% in the first 3 years are gone? It's it's brutal, right?
That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah,
people do repeat business with their first person.
Well, Dan, are you talking about people who come into the industry and then leave the industry?
Yes. Yeah. Right. So it's a high churn industry. So, sometimes when you're a new agent, you were mainlining HGTV $1 million listing, blah, 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 blah. And you think it's just going to be a breeze. Where's my Rolls Royce? Like, I got this stuff. It's going to be awesome. And then you get out there and you realize it's actually work. Right. So, I get it that there will be people who churn. But if you're listening to this and you're wondering if my service is right for you, here's how you know. Number one, you are a true fiduciary. You sincerely will do what's in the best interest of your client always. And for me, that means valuing the relationship above the commission. So if you really care about people, if you say you're the kind of person who's going to treat them like family, you better keep in touch with them like they're family. Let's fill that gap, first of all. So I definitely want to make sure that we're clear that the dabbler, like the person who's going, okay, I'm barely in this industry. I'm not even sure how to get something through a transaction. Like, I want to help that person be successful in real estate, and I would advise them to align themselves with a person, an organization, a team leader, someone who can really teach them the business. Like, your first few years in, if you're more focused on what you're learning than what you're earning, you're doing the right thing. So, general rule of thumb for me would be no dabblers. Like, I want people who are really committed to doing a great job for their clients, not just winging it, thinking, I'll give this a try. Let's see how real estate goes. So those are my 2 cents, Dustin. That's where I come from.
Yeah, no,
that's a good answer.
Yeah. And I know a lot of agents in that situation. I think what I hear from you, Dan, is, or the word that keeps coming to my mind as I hear you talk, is authenticity, right? Like, you're working really hard to help people be who they are with the people they know. That's how I'm defining authenticity, right? And I think that is the power of your services. I'm understanding it, and kind of the message you're trying to communicate to us is that relationships can beget business, and that is fantastic. But really, they only beget the business if you've taken the time to care, like legitimately care about people in between the business, right?
Well, we can help that person who really cares about doing a great job for people. The messaging, the response they'll get, it's beautiful. It's brilliant. You can send the exact same message for someone who is insincere, who's inauthentic, who doesn't have an interest in really taking great care of people, and it won't work. Yeah. Our clients bring the heat on their own, right? There are already people of value who are sincerely committed to doing a great job for other people. And then our content just amplifies that.
Well, probably without your content, they get in their own way, right? Like, the most authentic and sincere people I know regularly get in their own way, especially when it comes to sitting down in front of a Word doc or a MailChimp or a whatever with a flashing cursor and a blank screen.
That's where all the marketing noise seeps in, Dustin. Yeah. There's so much noise out there. Like, I just heard Dan Kennedy on a podcast, and all of a sudden I'm a direct response copywriter. People will screw up their own stuff. I don't do brain surgery for myself part-time. I would never consider selling my home myself. Like, people need help with this stuff. And if they've sent hundreds of millions of messages, they would be as insistent as I am that, like, you shouldn't have to try to do everything yourself. You can get the results you want by just adding a little bit of leverage.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The right leverage.
Do you guys have any other questions for Dan?
Yeah, how do people contact you?
Yep.
Well, this is going to be shocking. HappyGrasshopper.com. And Ricardo's, what's my name? Dan. So, I mean, theoretically, if you emailed me at dan@happygrasshopper.com, I would even get that and reply. That could happen. And in all seriousness, like you guys who've listened to this, who've been with us on this journey, let me know, right? Let me know. Send me an email, and I'll give you guys a free white glove setup for your Chirp accounts. So you could just go to happygrasshopper.com, subscribe for Chirp. Everything we do is 100% guaranteed. There are no contracts. It's all month to month. So you're never at risk, but just my gift to you guys and your audience. Let me have one of my specialists go help you pull your contacts from every place and get your account set up for you.
Literally no brainer.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
When you enter promo code Ricardo, nothing happens.
Your account gets deleted.
Awesome, Dan. It has been a real pleasure having you on the show. Really appreciate your insights into how good sphere of influence communication happens and how that really begets transactions for people. I just think it takes everything we've said over the past year and change to a whole nother level, and adds a higher definition, higher level of resolution to it all. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's great to see you guys.
Yeah,
likewise.
Yeah,
hopefully in person sometime sooner.
Absolutely.
Rather than later.
yeah.
San Diego, NAR in San Diego.
Is that where
it this year?
Yeah, it's coming in November to San Diego, and then Scott, you're coming to Tampa, right? So
I'll be in Tampa for one day. I'm definitely going to have to make a trip out there and see you. I've moved to Austin, though. I'm not in California anymore. So
okay.
I'm a little bit closer.
So Austin has my favorite restaurant of every restaurant I've ever been to in my life. It's called El Alma. It's at the corner of Barton Springs and Dawson. Go order the Duck Rayano. It will change your life. I promise.
That's awesome.
Oh, my goodness.
El Alma. ELALMA. I love that place.
Oh, done. I'll report back. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
So,
All right,
Scott,
guys.
besides at El Alma, where can people find you?
Were you asking me?
Yeah, Scott.
Oh,
Promote yourself.
findmywayhome.com. You can find me on here, findmywayhome.com. Google my name. I'm out there.
He's out there. He is out there. God, that's
Awesome.
that's true in so many ways. Ricardo, where can people find you?
I got a regular podcast and webinars over at ricardobueno.com. Pretty simple. Can't mess it up. I got an email this morning that said, "Hey, Carlos, I just heard you on the Mailright podcast. I had a couple of questions."
Did you forward it to Carlos?
So bad. Anyway, ricardobueno.com is where you can find that. Once again, I am Ricardo. Pleasure to meet you, and we'll talk to you soon.
If you bump into Carlos at the grocery store, be sure to say hi and tell him you listen to him on this podcast.
Oh my God.
Awesome. And I'm Dustin with Lighthouse Escrow. You can find us at lighthouseescrow.com. We would love the opportunity to work with you. If you're in the state of California, your property's in the state of California, we'd love to handle your refinance or sale transactions. So give us a shot. You can also use our free closing cost calculator to get an estimate on how much you could make in cash, in dollars, if you sell your home today with today's amazing house prices, especially in Orange County. So that's us. Dan, it's been a pleasure. Until next time, everyone, it has been the Marketing Trench.